All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Todd. I'm filling in for Chair Wolfgang. We'll gavel in this meeting, the June 25th, 2020 meeting of the AMATS Policy Committee to order at this time, which is 1:30. We'll do roll call. So, Craig, would you do the roll call for me, please?
Yes, sir. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Can anyone hear me? Okay, great. Let's start with Ms. Heil.
Present.
Mr. Weddleton. Okay. Ms. Zalatel.
Here.
Mr. Schutte. And Mr. Van Hove.
I am present.
Okay, so
Mr. Constant is here as well.
Okay, so Mr. Constant, are you filling in for Mr. Weddleton, or the alternate?
I don't know if he intends to show up or not, but I am present. I would note that the agenda fails to have an item on it that was requested and directed at the last meeting, and I'm not sure where we're going with that.
I was going to add that in just a moment, and I see that Mr. Schutte is dialed in, so I think, Mr. Chair, we have all but Mr. Weddleton. If he joins us, we'll note that, but you do have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Craig. Will you, Craig, will you now give us the public involvement announcement, please?
Yes, indeed. All AMATS committee meetings are open to the public. The public is provided an opportunity to comment at each meeting. As per usual, we'll have the business item presented by staff or consultant, and then the committee will be given a chance to discuss the matter, and then after that, the public will be invited to comment. In this case, we obviously we're doing our virtual meetings, and AMATS posted notice of this meeting a week ago on Thursday, June 18th, which included instructions to the public for how to comment on agenda items. We are utilizing the same system that the Anchorage Assembly, Planning and Zoning, Planning Board, etc. is using, which asks members of the public to email AMATS by 6:30 yesterday with their name, phone number, and requested agenda item or items to speak to. We did not receive any requests to speak in advance. However, the public right now is able to follow the proceedings of today's meeting via Teams Live, and they will also be able to ask questions or request to testify during the meeting. So Aaron and I will be following the chat for this meeting, and hopefully able to catch people who are requesting to jump in and comment. And we'll ask anybody speaking today to keep your audio on mute in order to minimize feedback and echoing, and to make sure when you do make a comment or have a question, to make sure you announce your name before the speaking so we know exactly who's saying what, and we can capture that for the record. That's it.
Thank you. Moving on, do we have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Name, please.
I'm sorry, Craig just told me that too. Chris Schutte, so moved.
Cindy Heil seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Schutte. Thank you, Ms. Cindy Heil. Are there, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, as Mr. Constant pointed out, you requested a while ago to have added an informational item to our agenda for an update for the Stewart to Glen Planning Environmental Linkage Study. I completely neglected and forgot to remind Aaron to add that to the agenda. So if we could add that as item 6A, he requested that a while ago, actually, I think probably before the previous policy committee meeting. So I don't have anything personally against this project. I just somehow keep forgetting to add it. So I apologize greatly. The state is aware of the request for the informational item. We can add that.
And just a comment to that, this is Mr. Constant, that despite whatever anybody's intent is, yours or the state, this project was scheduled to be funded and operating in 2019. And the next time we meet, it will be 2021. So I look forward to the briefing.
Can you, this is Chris Schutte, Mr. Lyon or Mr. Constant, you were breaking up a little bit. Can you restate what the 6A item is supposed to read?
So the item in the tip is Seward Highway to Glen Highway connection planning and environmental linkages study. This is a project that is in our current TIP. It shows 2019 funds to obligate, and Mr. Constant requested an update on the status of that project.
Thank you. I wasn't clear on that last part, what he was asking for. So an update on Fairview PDL. Got it. Thank you.
Mr. Schutte, just Mr. Chair, yes, an update because that's all I can seem to get.
Very well, so added, noted. Are there any objections to adopting the agenda?
As amended, move to approve the agenda. Adopt.
Thank you, Mr. Schutte. Agenda is approved. We'll move on to item 5A. We do not have any meeting minutes to approve, so we'll move on to agenda 5A 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, Air Quality Conformity Determination. Greg, will you be presenting?
I will start, and then we'll move on to Ms. Underwood. This is, as you may remember, whenever we're doing one of our plans, whether it's the TIP or the MTP, the first thing we always need to check is to make sure that that the conformity determination related to air quality is done, because if we're doing a plan and it doesn't conform to the air quality standards, then there's no reason to adopt the plan itself. So the first step we have to do is always approve the air quality conformity determination. And I will let Ms. Underwood provide the actual document here and give you information.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Well, for the record, I'm Vivian Underwood with AMATS. And for this item, you have a memo and you have the public review draft of the air quality conformity determination for the companion document we'll be looking at in the next item. And that's the 2040 AMATS Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So AMATS Policy Committee released the public review draft of the document for public review with Chapter 9 of the MTP air quality for a 45-day public period ending March 9. The purpose of this report is to ensure that the federally funded MTP does not hinder the attainment or continued maintenance of national ambient air quality standards. So the AMATS planning area contains both this carbon monoxide limited maintenance area for the Bowl and a PM10 limited maintenance area for Eagle River. And a conformity determination is required for these two pollutants based on monitoring data. So the determination report includes the monitoring data and demonstrates that we have not exceeded the limits and we are in the bounds for that. It also has to conclude that there's no element of the MTP will undermine either the objective to reduce ambient CO in the Bowl or PM10 in Eagle River. And it also has to say that the MTP will not interfere with implementation of any SIP, state implementation plan, transportation control measures, which are identified in the Alaska SIP. And those happen to be MTP Project 104, which is the Air Quality Public and Business Awareness Education Program, which includes the Plug It 20 campaign, and MTP Project 105, Anchorage Ride Sharing and Transit Marketing. And those correlate to TIP projects in the Air Quality Table, Table 5. So we're good to go there. So the Air Quality Conformity Determination must be approved by FHWA no later than November 19th, 2020. We've missed our first deadline of November 19th, 2019, so this is a hard deadline that if we've missed, will result in AMATS not being able to start any new projects or new phases of projects already underway. Another element of this is that it is a de facto finding of fiscal constraint of the companion 2040 MTP document for EPA regulation. It may seem odd that it's in the EPA regulations, but that's the way it is. So, the Technical Advisory Committee is recommending, along with staff, that the Policy Committee review and approve this document. And I should add there were no public comments received for this document. So that's all I have, and turn it back to the chair.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, can we let the record show that Mr. Weddleton has joined us?
So done, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Wellington, for joining. Okay, moving on. Are there any questions or comments from the committee for item 5A? Hearing none. Are there any comments from the public? Craig and Aaron?
Do not see anyone wishing to comment on it.
Very well. What is the will of the committee?
Mrs. Shooty moves to approve. Weddleton second.
Are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Moving on to item 5B, 2040 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Time and response summary. Greg, will you be presenting?
I am going to get out of Vivian and Aaron's way. Let them share with us what they've been doing for the last 3 years or so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Lyon is correct. We're at the end of a 3.5-year process. We first began in early 2017. We hired contractor HDR last meeting. We were on a tight schedule to end by November 2017, and we did miss that deadline, but we have a little bit of a chance to meet our final hard deadline of November 19th of this year. So the plan has a 20-year horizon, but I just want to remind everybody that it has a 4-year shelf life. We have to have another MTP done in 4 years. So as soon as we finish this one, we have to turn right around and start on the next one. We had a public involvement plan for this project. It was approved initially by the Technical Advisory Committee. We had public review of goals and objectives, screening criteria, future deficiency analysis. We had 3 meetings. We had a meeting with the public in both in Eagle River and Anchorage both to identify issues. We had a 3-day charrette with breakout groups, and we had a 3rd public meeting for the public review draft. We also had 2 surveys to ask about problem identification and preferences. And then we did some second scenario modeling. We got cost estimates. It has a financial plan. It's a fiscally constrained plan. We had 4 work sessions with the AMATS committees to develop a public review draft list of projects that was put out for public review. We got some good comments, and the policy committee revised the final list that went into the public review draft based on the comments we received. So we are in a grace period now, which is not where we want to be, but now we have a little less than 5 months to get this approved by the Federal Highway Administration. Actually, they don't approve the document itself, the plan. They do approve the companion air quality conformity determination that we just went over. So we're going to need time to make final edits requested by the policy committee and give the Federal Highway Administration enough time to do their review and approval, especially during this COVID event, which could take longer. So we're going to ask AMATS Policy Committee not to make any major changes that would be significantly different from the public review draft, so that we would have to go back out for public review. And that's actually in the Code of Federal Regulations that we would need to do that for a major change. And the major change is also defined in the Federal Code of Regulations as being adding or deleting a project, changing a time frame for a project, changing a cost estimate, changing descriptions, and there's another piece. Can't remember what it is right now, sorry. But those are the main things. And so we received 469 comments from the public, which we were very pleased with. And I want to thank every single person who took the time to look at the document and think about it and provide their comments, because it's very clear that the community is vested in this. They're interested, and we heard from 63 individuals, 7 community councils, 8 organizations, 8 government agencies, and 1 tribal government. And I know that you all like short presentations. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the type of comments we received. So we received 85 edits, suggestions, and identification of some missing items. And we concurred with many of those, and we will be willing to make those changes. And then we received 287 comments by theme. And by that, I mean topic or issue area. Those themes happen to coincide very nicely with the action items in Chapter 8, although those action items are organized by goal. So I went back through and organized the action items for my own use along these themes that people were asking about. And that helped us a lot in responding to people's comments and directing them back to the document. So some of the most comments we got were on coordinating with other plans, such as the land use plan, the non-motorized plan, Vision Zero, street topology, etc. And we got 39 comments on goals and objectives. And we got 41 comments on promoting non-single occupant but vehicles options and about the mode share split. And it also happens to be the largest number of action items in Chapter 8 that we have. We have over 30 items in Chapter 8, action items, that address promoting non-SOV options. So I feel like the implementation plan is in step with what we've heard from the public. They just may not have known where to look for what they were looking for. So then we had 149 projects comments. And of those, real quickly, so there were 9 do not support and 20 to delay or delete certain projects. And I have to say that 16 of the 29 had to do with the Midtown Congestion Relief Project and the Sewer to Glen project. But there was no mandate about what to do about them. Some people wanted to delay them, some people wanted to delete them, some people wanted to delay some of the Sewer to Glen projects but move up others, like 316, which is 13 to Airport Heights. So that was it. I can give you more detail about that if you'd like. I should note that there were some people who wanted to, well, the Assembly, for example, wanted to delay the Midtown Congestion and Sewer to Glen Highway projects, but move up the PEL study to be done. That's Project 129 in the MTP. I'm sorry, move up 316. The Assembly wants to get Project 129 done first before doing the other projects. So there were other projects other comments to support projects in favor or moving up them. And we did get 2 strong support comments for the Sewer to Glen Highway project. But the most we got for any one project that was consistent across the board was Project 210, which is the Huffman Road, Pintail to Birch project. There were some community concerns about the intersection, and so we responded to those comments in the comment response center. So we also had comments for proposing new projects. We had 23 of those, 31 to change the project descriptions all together. Then we had some other comments from the Commission for Historical Preservation from the municipality and from certain other agencies. So that kind of gives you a flavor, I hope, of what we've heard. I'm going to stop there and turn it back to the chair for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Vivian. Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
This is Member Zalato. May I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Underwood, for the presentation as well as the explanation you gave me earlier and the citations about the timing and when the plan needs to go back out to public comment. I looked at those citations and I'm still a little bit confused, so I thought now might be a good time to talk about this. The citation about what constitutes a change or a change enough to require public comment was really with regard to an amendment, and I'm a little bit confused if this would be considered an amendment because a plan is not yet adopted.
Through the chair, thank you, Ms. Zalato. So as I mentioned in my email, it is for an amendment, but we use that. It's the only thing we have to help define, in this case, in this type of case, what would be considered a major change to have to go back out for public review and comment. And we do have an AMATS public involvement plan, public participation plan. And so that also addresses amendments, but it doesn't really specifically address this specific situation. I understand your concern, but I have to tell you that I have everybody that really the time to add projects or delete projects was a year ago. And that's when we had our 4 work sessions with the AMATS committees, and we're doing the horse trading, I guess you'd say. But that was the time to consider moving projects in and out, moving between time frames. We were doing modeling, and we were having to change the fiscal constraint analysis on the fly. Aaron did an outstanding job with that, and it was a lot of work and a lot of time. And we eventually modeled the final recommendation, the preferred alternative that is in the public review draft. And I understand the concerns about why would you put something out asking for public review and comment when you're really not going to make any changes. And I understand that, but we did put out the preferred alternative for public review and comment before the public review draft of the document. And we did get some really good comments back, and now so the same people are providing even more comments. And there has to be a point at which we stop and get the document done. Now, I will say this, at the work sessions, and I'm not sure if Ms. Zalato was at the work sessions, but we had 2 really good in-depth work sessions going over the comment response summary. And I know Mr. Weddington had some of the same concerns. And I do agree that for the next MTP, we need to be much more clear with the public when we have the call for nominations, the call for projects, and not just put something out on the web for 45 days and send it out to our usual mailing list, but to be more proactive and to work with the community councils and to let people know that this is your big opportunity to nominate projects for the MTP, because then this master list then will be scored, and it was scored a while ago, using the screening criteria that will also be put out for public review and comment. I know that's a long answer. This is not the time to be changing goals and objectives either. We have 39 comments on goals and objectives. If you change the goals and objectives at this date for this plan, you're changing some of the basics that the plan is based on. So we need to work with the policy committee and the technical advisory committee to make sure that everybody understands the process. And I think we need to be better about communicating that, actually. And why it's so important to get public input earlier in the process. And maybe take less time to get to the public review draft. I do think that it's hard to keep momentum. It's hard for people to even remember what they commented on, a couple of years ago. So I'm sort of in favor, it's not my call, of course, but I'm in favor of getting to a public review draft earlier in the process that people can react to as a whole. You know, we did involve everybody in steps from the very beginning. We wanted to be very careful to bring the public along with goals and objectives, screening criteria, policies, and all that. But I just think it took too long. And there were reasons for that. One of the reasons was that we did scenario modeling. And I think, looking back, I think the entire team feels that perhaps that was a bit of a waste of time. What we should save our money for, and our modeling runs next time, is to look at various fiscally constrained alternatives. We did modeling too early. We modeled non-fiscally constrained alternatives, which really is not realistic. So this was a bit of a learning process for us. Our 35-year veteran, John Spring, retired, and we were all learning with this MTP. So I hope that you can bear with us on that. And next, I think we all had ideas about how to do the next one better, and we are committed to doing that.
Thank you, Vivian. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee?
Actually, this is Ms. Dowd, so I have a follow-up question, if I may.
Please.
Thank you. I went in and I've read the public participation plan or guide, and I was looking at the flow chart, particularly on page 26 of that document, and I apologize, I am new to this, so it may be something that I don't 100% understand, but as I look and work through the that flow chart, which is really good and helpful to understand, there's the public review draft that's released, there's the end of this comment period, and then there is the public hearing draft that comes out of after that comment period is ended, and then it goes through a process of receiving comments from the assembly, and they're considered, and then when it lands at the policy committee, it says policy committee adopts document. That seems to run up against kind of what my idea of what policy means, in that this document will guide transportation policy, yet there's not a lot of room to make any changes. In other circumstances, if there wasn't this deadline kind of looming, would there be that opportunity, or would it then still possibly continue to run into instances where if we couldn't have reasonably anticipated the changes being made, it would have to go back out for public comment?
Through the chair, Ms. Allentown, we have been in this situation before with the Kinnigarn crossing, where we got to the very last minute. An assembly member had asked us to delete the Kinnigarn crossing from the 2007 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And we had a change of administrations, and at the very last minute, the idea was to move it from, Mr. Lyon might need to help me with my memory, but to move it from illustrative to the long term. And they did not put it back out for public review and comment, and AMATS got sued. But we faced a suit because we did not do that, because we did not follow the process. We did not go back out for public review and comment. And it was eventually resolved out of court, where we promised to go back out for public review and comment. But this is serious. I mean, if we don't do that, then we're setting ourselves up for another similar event. Now, about the graphic on page 26, there is an asterisk there that says the AMATS plan then goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission And it should also say the assembly to be adopted as an element of the comprehensive plan. So by code, the municipal long-range transportation plan is its own process. And in the past, we have done them at the same time. At the same time that we've adopted, and it's been messy because the assembly would have made their comments, and the comments go back to the policy committee. Well, there was a lot of back and forth between the assembly and the policy committee in that instance, and the document that was actually adopted as an element of the comprehensive plan, it was too early, so it was actually the wrong document. So I think it's much cleaner to have to do the federal approval first, get the policy committee, and then the assembly can review it and along with planning and zoning recommendations and have their document. Now the two documents by code are supposed to be as similar as possible, but there is latitude for some changing there. So I think that Mr. Lyon has indicated that we probably do need to clean up this graphic on page 29 to make it clearer. And any comments that you particularly Mr. Wellington and Mr. Constant, because you've been so interested in that, any comments you can provide that we can help clarify the process would be very much appreciated.
Thank you, Vivian. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Yes, this is Mr. Constant, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, I'm just curious then, I think Ms. Zalatal points out, and I think that we've heard clearly from the staff, this is just how it is, that the purpose of the policy committee's action right now is simply adoption, period, full stop. That any comments or input had to have been done before. And at some other time, some many years ago. And so what's the point of even having the public comment period? Because if the public raised important comments, the policy level has no ability to make those changes at this time, we are clearly being told. So ultimately, doesn't that mean that the policy is being set at the staff level?
Through the chair, we are making changes that were from comments. And there are many of those where we do concur that we do need to make those changes. Well, what we're restricting our comments to on this is changes to projects and changes to goals and objectives. I think it's very reasonable to understand that the goals and objectives should be set at the beginning and not modified at the end. Now, there were a lot of good comments that we received, and we are going to carry those forward for considering the next update. We're going to turn right around and start right after this one is adopted. The projects, if we have to go back out for public review and comment this project, that is going to guarantee that we will miss this deadline, and there will be consequences, financial consequences.
Yeah, I absolutely understand that, Ms. Underwood. I've heard that particular refrain now at least 4 times in the last 5 years. That because of time, we can't make changes, otherwise everything is off the rails. But what I just heard you say, and let me make sure I understand this correctly, is that there are some elements of this plan that's before us right now that are immutable because of time, and that includes the goals and objectives and kind of the framework of the document. But what I'm hearing you say is then that the actual projects are immutable. And the staff has made those determinations because they find them reasonable according to their standards. And but otherwise, that's it. Is that a correct assessment?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner, whatever, board member Chris Shooting.
Yes, sir.
But Mr. Constant, that's not entirely correct, because don't forget, all of this has a very regimented review and approval process prior to even getting to the PC, right? So don't forget the master document that somebody has up on the screen now that shows the public comments and how those comments were either resolved or incorporated. All of this has already gone through the technical advisory committee for their consent or dissent in some cases. And so there's been another layer of review process already prior to getting here. So it's not entirely accurate to say that it's just staff making those selections. And don't forget, the policy committee we haven't actually taken our action yet. So as many of our staff members know and hate, John and I love to make last minute changes to things. So I don't know what John has up his sleeve today, but that still could happen. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
But Chris, if I might though, what you just said is that effectively the technical advisory committee, which are functionally staff, they might not be AMATS staff per se, but they're at the staff level, get an opportunity to meaningfully amend. But here we sit, and it doesn't feel like that. And so, but you did just suggest that there are some amendments coming forward right now that do fit in the rubric of allowable at this time with the time constraints we have. So I will sit back and listen for what those might be.
Mr. Chair, this is through the chair. May I speak? This is Vivian Underwood.
Yes, Vivian.
I do need to say this. The AMATS Intergovernmental Operating Agreement does say that the Technical Advisory Committee will oversee the preparation of the plan and that the Policy Committee will approve it. Every other time since AMATS has been born, we have had the Technical Advisory Committee ride herd over development of the MTP with giving informational updates to the Policy Committee at interim steps. Now, we already had the schedule set with our contractor. We had the contract layout that we for technical advisory committee meetings. Now, at a policy committee meeting in 2017, early 2017, some policy committee members expressed that they wanted to have a hands-on approach to the MTP, and from now on, they wanted to be the ones to approve interim deliverables. That had a serious impact on the project schedule and the project budget with our contractor. Nevertheless, of course, because that was the will of the policy committee, we did that. I do think that you might want to revisit the operating agreement to make that change if that's the direction that we're going to be going in from now on. And so it's not like changing horses in the middle of a race, you know. And this was a learning process for us. I just tried to explain back then that it would have implications for the schedule. And I would like to ask the policy committee to please work with staff to try to understand these constraints that we have. These are not just us making these calls. We have deadlines. We have a deadline for the TIP and we have a deadline for the MTP, not for any other plan that we do. The planning department doesn't have deadlines. You know, when they do the land use plan, they don't have a deadline. They have the luxury of time to keep revising the document. That's not true for this. And we need to consider everybody who's involved and what projects are going to be affected. And so I would like to really ask the policy committee members to please appreciation for the fact that we do have a deadline, and the project schedule is really, really important. I'd also like to say that for the 2025 long-range transportation plan, which was the first one that we did with a consultant, there were two people who co-opted the process and wanted to talk about goals and objectives for months longer than was in the project schedule. we had to go back and add money to the contract and extended the contract time frame. And it impacted the schedule so much that Mr. Spring had to create an interim long-range transportation plan that wasn't planned for, and he had to scramble to get that approved while they were still working on the big one. So,
Vivian, may I say something? This is Cindy Heil to the chair.
yes.
Go ahead.
So, one of the things to remember that we have the operating agreement they talked about. We also have a bunch of policies and procedures. And the last two updates to the MTP that we've done, the policy committee has passed like a guidance document, a policy call, where it said, these are our boundaries. This is what we're going to do. And the interim, I can't remember what that resolution was. You know, we said, we're not going to do this, 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 and this. And this is what we're going to do, this, 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 this. We passed a policy resolution for this plan as well. So we've been doing that for each of the 4 ones, laying out the framework, laying out the process, laying out the borders and the boundaries. Because you have to, every 4 years we have to do this. You have a very fast time to do it. You have an expectation that you have to meet. You have to maintain the expectations of everybody, and inevitably within the course of an MTP update, you're going to have changes in policy people on the committee because of turnover and election. So you're trying to juggle all these things. So you have a sitting body of policy committees who make resolutions, which maybe in the future that policy, that resolution should be in every single meeting to remind everybody what those decisions were, because some of the decisions people are expressing frustrations now, even though it was 4 years ago that resolution was made. You have to have some level of consistency, and while it might appear that it's frustrating that things aren't getting changed, but you can't have changes. I mean, I've been now with AMATS, either on the technical advisory committee or the policy committee for 24 years or 25 years. And inevitably, there is always somebody comes up and wants to do a change at the last minute because it's either political or it's something comes up and everybody's like, whatever. So right now we just passed a conformity. All right, so that means if you guys make any major changes, this policy makes any major changes to the road network or into projects that could affect conformity, we have to redo the conformity analysis and put it back out for public comment. So I have mentioned this at least 4 or 5 times over my career here with as part of the AMATS. In fact, one time we actually stopped the policy committee meeting and had a closed-door meeting in the back, in the mayor's office, because we were having people going, oh, what is this going to mean? And it was all based on a map, because someone didn't like relying on a map, because they wanted to move projects. So this is not a new thing. And I know people are frustrated, but we're at the end game. They're trying to make as many changes as they can without changing the whole conformity. By federal rule, conformity has to be approved first. We just approve the conformity analysis. So we can make huge changes, but if any of those cause a conformity, triggers a conformity review, we would have to redo it. We have a much more flexibility now that we're not using modeling, but it's still always there. So I think we just need to, if we want to make changes, make a note, set up a resolution for the next 4 years, and identify what needs to happen. One of these could be you want the public notice draft out first. I mean, these are valuable lessons. We learn something new every single time we do one of these. So, thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Reynoldson's turn. Sorry, Chris Schutte, I have nothing to pull out. See, I have questions, but I think in regard to the bigger picture, I am sympathetic to the fact that if we did changes now, it would throw a wrench in the system. And excuse me. So I mean, there are changes made based on the public comments, obviously hugely significant, but the document shows some changes. Since we are starting out with the next MTP already, what I'd like to see, some way is the comments on this incorporated into the new one, kind of as an early preview of what people are looking for. And that creates a lot of value in these comments at that point. We also have, moving out from this, and I did want to review the kind of dual track schedule with some dates at some point, so just to refresh up at least my memory, maybe others. But then this will go, and I think we started the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think Schutte might know a little better, because we have the AMATS Citizens Advisory Committee, which I thought replaced the Planning Commission for reviewing this, but that could be wrong. But then it ultimately comes back to the Assembly for adoption as our comprehensive plan, and at that point we can make changes, and I would expect some. And having done that, that document should also be a guide to the MTP that's kind of next to the 4-year. So kind of based on that, I'm willing to kind of go with the changes that were accepted in this document, kind of the comment response document.
Thank you, Mr. Wellington. I'm sorry, did I step over you? Were you finished?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments from the committee?
This is Mr. Concept. One very last brief comment that it's kind of astounding to hear that people, and this is no disrespect intended, people who've served for 30 years in a technical role are comfortable with the staff making changes. When people who've been around this process many years, but nowhere near 30, are now witnessing again that the staff, the technical level, are making changes to these documents, and they're the only ones taking a bite of the apple. And that's just how it is. I hear it, and I'm looking forward to a better process in the future. But it's astounding to hear. And it is a lot of work. I respect that. There should be a process by which the policy level gets into that. So thank you all.
We can Wellington comment, or Schutte, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I got recognized by some member Wellington, but you're recognized by the chair.
Yep.
Yes, sir, Mr. Schutte.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick point for those that are following along that heard Mr. Wellington's description of the planning, zoning, and assembly process. I think we've talked about this in past meetings, but for those that are new to the process, he's referring to something that exists in Title II of the Municipal Code that speaks about a long-range transportation plan, and that going to the assembly. It has a process laid out there on how that works. Ms. Wellington is correct that the local governing body may adopt a long-range transportation plan, LRTP, that has some differences from the MTP. And in fact, if I recall, staff can correct me, we were operating under that rubric in the recent past. And that's certainly not unheard of. The long-range transportation plan, for the city, that's adopted for the city, is, as Mr. Weddleton described, it is the city's accepted vision for the future of transportation networks in and around the municipality. And that will certainly be another opportunity to have a discussion about specific parts of our long-range transportation plan that members of the public may not agree with today. specific to the final comment, though, about staff review, I just want to point out, Mr. Constant, that even in the technical advisory committee, there are members of the public there, that there's a pretty robust public involvement process required by federal law throughout all of this. And so certainly it does feel icky, as if there is no way to make meaningful changes to these documents because of the process, and that it's all being made by certain staff members. But I have been involved in the process now for 5 years, and feel that as cumbersome as it is and as bureaucratic as it is, it actually functions pretty well most times in capturing that public input and translating it into our transportation policies. So I actually commend the staff on the hard work that they do and have done for the past several years on this project, and especially appreciate them being able to compile 68 pages of public comment into a coherent document where, I don't know, I did some quick math, 5 times out of about 50% of the time, staff accepted the recommendations that came from members of the public. So I feel like we're doing a pretty decent job here. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Sorry, go ahead.
You can call it.
All I heard was Mrs. Valentel, sorry.
Thanks, that's okay. Before we move on to motions and debate, I do need to make a disclosure. I live within proximity to the Midtown Congestion Relief Project. I've talked with Ethics Council and been advised to disclose that I live close enough that it could have an impact on my home, but that the Midtown Congestion Relief and projects such as the MTP is such a minor portion that I do not need to recuse myself unless there's a different finding. So I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wellington.
Well, thank you. Kind of addressing some of the points that Mr. Constant made, who I agree with his frustration that it does feel like, a body called the Policy Committee does not have as much impact on policy as we think. But, looking at the span of the various changes in the direction of this over the 4 years, we have made changes. I think, Chris, you were there with me for much of it. And significant changes in this than we would have seen had we not, been involved at the policy committee level. I look at this and there's a lot that I do differently, but we did. It is a very different plan because of involvement in those 4 years. So, and then I see a direction that we're going. It's good. This document is the stage for, the next one, which I think, given the that are and what we have seen from the Assembly is that the next one even more towards the land use and kind of some of the other broad goals of our comprehensive master plan. Patient, but I think we're traveling fast.
Thank you, Mr. Wellington.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair?
Yes, Vivian.
Yes, this is Vivian Underwood. I don't know if this is the right time. I just wanted to say that one of the most important, in my view, comments that we received, it was number 346, page 55, from Nancy Pease. And our response to that was to explore a dedicated funding source for public transportation. And this is one of the most critical things to implementing the land use plan and to densification, so that we can mitigate for any increased congestion that occurs. The land use plan does not say that we're just going to live with the congestion that is caused by densification. And it lays at the feet of the Public Transportation Department the responsibility to come along and help fulfill the vision for the long range land use plan, which is very difficult because they don't have the money to do that. And so I am very, very, very happy about this action item, and I would like to ask the Assembly's help and anybody else out there who can help us start framing, questions to ask, how do we get there, tools, that kind of thing, for how to do this, what it would look like, and what's legally available right now, because we got a lot of comments about expanding non-single occupant vehicle options. And that's not just to get people out of their cars and not give them any other option. That is not an option. To penalize people, by saying we want to reduce vehicles, we want to reduce people in their personal cars without giving an option. So I think the time has come for us to maybe explore that. That's all.
Thank you, Vivian.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Yes. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I have one more question, if I may. This is Zalatel.
Go ahead, Ms. Alto.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Underwood and staff, particularly that this will be a driving force for the next MTP. Can you please remind me, I know that the TIP will be up for revision soon, so I just need another reminder of the interplay between where the, if this is approved today, the MTP 2040, and how it will drive the TIP and what room there will be should the comments starting the next MTP kind of come up against some of those projects in the TIP, in that there could be some natural tension there.
Thank you, Ms. Zalatil. Through the chair, I probably need to defer to Aaron and Craig on this, but you'll notice that there are many projects in the short term of the 2040 MTP that are already in the TIP. Most of the short term, this is a frustration, most of the short term then is already spoken for. It's already in the TIP. It takes 10 years to get projects done using federal money. And there's a graphic in the MTP that shows that process, why it takes 10 years. The MTP is only 4 years, the TIP is only 4 years. So we're really looking at 2.5 TIP cycles to get things done. You see? And we can help you understand which projects are already in TIP. We have that information. So, I mean, something I've been thinking about too. We set up this big expectation that this MTP is a big deal, and it is. But what does it really mean? It is important to have long-range vision, and Mr. Constant made that point before. It is important to have projects that we want to have done in the long term. But I'd like to defer to Craig and Aaron to answer more completely your question.
This is Craig. So if I understand exactly what you're asking, the way we build the TIP is we look at all of the projects in the MTP and rank and score every project that's in there for inclusion into the TIP. So we will rank and score the short range, the long range, and the illustrative projects, and then based on their scores from the TIP criteria, they'll get filtered into a draft TIP, which as always goes through the TAC, and then it comes before you, the policy committee, for final approval. So we could rank and score a project that's in the illustrative part of the MTP, and we could, it could end up being the 5th ranking project due to the criteria, and when it gets before you, if you decide it needs to be way, way down lower, then you will do that. So for ranking and scoring, it doesn't matter if something's in short, long, or in the illustrative. We're going to rank and score it regardless.
May I ask a quick follow-up, please?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So that was really, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of the tension I was talking about. Several of the comments that are kind of on hold in the MTP comments are moving projects from short-term to long-term or long-term to illustrative or just shifting them around. So that will play out in the scoring, but it will come back before the policy, after it goes to the technical advisory committee to consider. It'll then go to back to us as the policy committee, and we can resolve that tension however it comes out.
Yeah, the bottom line is that the federal rules require that every MPO have a policy committee, have a policy board, and everything else is advisory. We've decided at this MPO that we're going to have a technical committee and a citizen advisory committee and a freight and a bike and ped, etc. But everyone is advisory to you, the policy committee. Whatever we do as staff, whatever the technical advisory committee does in their levels of expertise, they send it to you, and you decide what the final product looks like. When we did the TIP this time around, we did not have a couple of the projects. We had ranked and scored them, but they scored lower, and so they didn't get included in the final document. But at the policy committee added 2 projects that we had ranked and scored, and they were lower. You, the policy committee, decided they needed to be funded in this cycle, and that's where they've ended up. So that is always up to you. So you are always the final arbiter, the final decision maker. And yeah, that's how that works.
Thank you. That was a helpful clarification.
Mr. Lyon, through the chair.
Yes, baby.
Can you please explain what happens to projects? This may be what Ms. Zeller is not sure, but so projects that are already underway in the TIP, and projects that are, for example, DOT projects that are already underway. How does this all work?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but if we have and I'm not the NEPA expert, but my understanding is if a document or if a project has an approved environmental document that's gone to FHWA and they accepted it, then we start the time trap of having to either build the project to completion and finish the construction phase of it, or we stand the possibility of having to pay those monies back that were done for preliminary engineering and design. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yes, thank you so much. I just think everybody needs to understand that there's a consequence if you want to change priorities that much.
Thank you, everyone. Any additional questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Any comments from the public? Asking Aaron and or Craig. All right, hearing none. What is the will of the committee?
Move to, this is Chris, move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Middleton seconds.
Thank you. Are there any objections to approving the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. All right. Craig, are there any other action items for us to discuss at this time?
I have no other action items that I'm aware of.
Thanks, sir. Moving on to item 6. 6A, item 6 is the plan or plan updates. There is an addition to the agenda, which is a Sewer to Glen Hell study update. As a stand-in for your normal chair, I was the one that was going to give this update, so I will do that now. There is not a lot to update everybody on this project, with the exception that funding has been requested and the project has been established at DOT. A project manager has been assigned and has drafted an RFP. The RFP is, at that point, was about ready to be submitted to our contract section for final review and internal review when we received some requests by local legislators asking us to suspend work on the document. By honoring their wish, we have thus suspended for the meantime, work on this pending clarification from this body to either proceed with the work on this document or to continue to suspend it. And ultimately, that's in a nutshell where that project is right now.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I would like us to hold off this topic for 5 minutes. I'm going to raise Tom Begich because this is incredible.
So, Mr. Chair, I don't know that the policy committee has, a brief at ease or pause, but if there is such a thing, I would like to make a motion that we do it so that Mr. Constant can call whomever he's calling.
Senator Begich, at this point, this is shocking to learn that you have decided to table this project completely until some resolution has been made. It's shocking. He was on the agenda and on the phone at the last meeting when this item somehow managed not to get on the agenda. Now that he's not here, effectively this is being argued that it was him and Mr. Fields. It would have to be those two that have asked you to stop this project. I don't think that was actually the ask that they made. I've been involved in this conversation with them intimately for the last year and a half. And so that is 1 minute. I'll have him on the phone. We can answer this question for him.
Certainly. In reporting to the committee, that was the information I received from the project manager, is that I was not involved with the conference call with the named representative legislators. And so I'm just reporting to you what I was told, that we were, the department was asked to suspend work on this.
He will be available in just a couple minutes. All right, Tom, I have you on speakerphone. I hope that it communicates to the AMATS meeting. Mr. Chairman, would you please repeat the report you just gave?
Yes, I was asked to give a brief update on the Sewer to Glen Pell study, and the update is as follows. Funding for this project was requested and a project manager was established and selected, the project manager has established has established a project and has set up the funding. The project manager then has drafted an RFP and was getting ready to send it to our contract section for review, and then from there for an internal review prior to being released to the public. The department then received a call from local legislators requesting to suspend work on this project, and in honoring their request, we had since suspended work on this project until we could get clarification from this body as to whether to proceed with the project or to continue to suspend work on it.
Did you hear that, Senator?
Is there an opportunity for me to respond to that misrepresentation of position that myself and Representative Shields took?
I think it might be better if we find a way for Mr. Begich to call into this call. Is it feasible for us to work so he could be directly and not through my phone?
This is Craig. I just sent them the link to develop a staff member.
Okay, Tom, Senator Begich, the link has been emailed to you.
Bear with me for a moment while I look for the link.
It'll be just a moment as he gets the link.
The WebEx, just the WebEx.
That's it.
Correct?
Yes.
I'm going to call from this telephone, so I'm hanging up now
Okay.
from this phone.
Thank you, Tom. It'll be just a minute. He'll be calling into the WebEx. wait for Senator Begich to get on to the call, I just want to notify the members of this committee and the State Department of Transportation that in my outreach work that I'm starting to do into the community, I'm going to start raising the banner very high on the racial disparities and economic disparities that are being created by the inability of the department to move forward with this project after 10 and 15 years. And while people don't like to be called racist, the policies that we are implementing have a very disparate impact on people. And this delay continues to harm people every single day. This is, I have had a tone of anger in my voice at this meeting because I knew this was coming. And so, again, I look forward to Senator Begich being brought into this conversation, and I will be working on getting Representative Fields momentarily.
Process question. How does this work with
Senator Begich says he continues to be cut off as he tries to call in. Yes, I don't know where the microphone on my computer is. We can try this again with my phone.
Chris, I'm on now. I can hear you guys, but you guys can't hear me.
So I have you. Can any of the members hear Mr. Begich? Senator Begich, please speak.
In just a moment, I'm going to get back on that phone. Get back on that phone line. Hold on. I'm going to cut you off. I'll call you back.
I was able to.
Okay. We have at least that default.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, then let me respond to what I just heard was the chairman's report. At no time did myself or Representative Fields ever ask that this project be suspended. We simply requested in a series of letters that you include and involve members of the local community in your planning process, and that you move the project into planning. I want to know, and I want a copy of that report. I am outraged at what I just heard.
Yeah, this is Todd Van Hoek, Chief of Planning. I was not on the final phone call that I'm understanding that you, sir, had with our environmental chief and perhaps the director of Central Region. I'm not sure who was on that phone call. And that was the report that they gave to me, that we had been requested to stop work on this until we could get resolution. But to your question, sir, or to your point, I know I was on the first phone call with you, and I think I thought I tried to make it clear to everyone that was listening that we very much anticipate having a very robust planning involvement, both internally in the planning department and obviously with the community as well, once we get this RFP kicked off and sent down the road and in a consultant's hands. There will be a very similar robust public involvement plan. I know the first time you and I met, or you and I talked on the phone, sir, we had talked about a Pell guidebook that was also being prepared, and that we are, hopefully that will spell out some of the procedures more clearly. But I don't think it, and I can't, like I said, I don't know what was said at the subsequent meeting, but I tried to relay to you that it would be my observation or my impression that there would very much be a heavy planning involvement, both from the Department of Transportation Regional Planning Office, the AMATS planning section, and the individuals within the Fairview community and any other surrounding community.
Well, let me be clear about what I just heard from that report that you provided. What I have heard from that report is an absolute disregard by the department of the position that we took in regard to ensuring that that money, that appropriated money, that duly appropriated money is spent as it's supposed to be spent on a community-based planning process. Your comments notwithstanding, this is something that must go up to the commissioner's level. So I absolutely want to see a copy of that report. There's been no request to suspend that work. And I must tell you, Todd, this is the kind of crap that ruins the reputation of government and the ability of government to do a decent project. All that was ever asked for was a robust process. Despite the comments that you just made, have been to slow roll that process and not engage the community. And I am done with it. I have done my best to be appropriate and to work within the bounds that were laid out for me to ensure that the community is heard. And the response from the department, it sounds like, is to say, well, if we're going to get any pushback, we'll just stop this. That is outrageous. And AMATS committee that's listening to this conversation right now, if you all know me, this is not the way I tend to do things, but I am done with this. If this is what the department's going to do, then we're going to take this to a much higher level. And I regret that, because this was an easy process to fix. Easy. The requests made were modest. And it is clear that the pushback from people who had nothing better to do than to disregard the public is clearly outrageous. I'm absolutely astounded by this. I left a call that I was a participant and leader in to take this call, and I'm just outraged.
Mr. Chair, I would add that a month ago, I was prepared to have just as much fire as you heard from Senator Begich. And he was a little let down at how much fire I didn't bring, because I wanted to give the department another chance, one more chance to be honest with us. And the department, I believe, was just honest with us. And I am quite horrified.
Okay, I mean, from speaking from the department, since I'm the only one here, I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure what your ask is. I said I'm happy to take any discussion points back and engage in this conversation with the department. Since I wasn't on that second meeting.
My ask is for a copy of your report, and I will be taking this up with the commissioner.
Sir, are you asking for the draft RFP I referred to?
No, I'm asking for the copy of the report you just made to the AMATS board.
Oh. Okay, yes, I can provide that.
And what I'm asking for is that this project gets underway. We had it funded in 2017. It was delayed to 2019. It is now 21. 2021 starts next week, and we are still in the same position that we've been in, begging for relief. This goes back to 2010, 2012. I can show you the neighborhood planning documents adopted into the Anchorage Comprehensive Plan, Title 21, which shows this taking is ongoing. And the attention that the division continues to put onto this is another day, another day, another day. People are having their livelihoods stolen from them by the inaction of this department, and it has to end.
Well, along with sitting out the meeting that I just spoke of, gladly I'll do that. As you related to the end of my my short spiel there on the update was, with the direction, if you will, from the policy committee to proceed. We have been ready to proceed, so I mean that would take nothing to wrap this thing up and get it sent out and get this project kicked off. The funding is in place. There's no Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no potential for the funding lapsing since it has been requested, it has been submitted to a project.
You're correct.
Thank you. So, go ahead, sir.
So I have a question. Is this a report or is this an action item?
Well, this was a report, but I mean, at the end of the update, it was, you know, I don't know if we need to add this to an action item to get, I don't know if we even need an action item. I guess I'm looking for Ms. Hoyle's assistance on this to get, I don't know if we need action or if we just need direction to proceed.
This is something, the chair, if the money is all there and there's nothing that AMATS is going to do from an AMATS perspective, if it's fully funded, then AMATS has done what it needs to do. If it's at DOT, it's a thing about getting with DOT about the individual projects and the project managers and figuring out what the holdup is so we can get it started.
I understand. So
AMATS has done what it needs to do.
Sure. So if I understand you correctly, there's no action needed by this committee. Then the department just needs to proceed with the finalizing this request and send it out for solicitation.
Mr. Chairman, this is,
I would advise that.
Mr. Chairman, this is Chris Shooting. Sorry, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, this is Chris Shooting. I just, to Ms. Heil's point, I think to Mr. Weddleton's point about this being a report, not an action item, given the past actions the policy committee has taken on this project and our ongoing interest in seeing it fulfilled, if there is a role that we can play in some future discussion around this topic, I just want to express to Senator Begich and to Assemblymember Constant, we, at least me as a participant in this, I'm willing to participate in any of those discussions. And I'm certainly encouraged, Todd, to hear that you're going to take this back and work out this misunderstanding with Senator Begich and Representative Fields. But if there's a role for us to play or an opportunity for us to participate, I'm certainly game. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I would just say as well, I'm looking forward to getting this thing started and getting it moved off out of the department and kicked off within the community as well. So that will be my spin on it as I take it back.
It's Weddleton here. So I think at the end of your report, Todd, you said that you were looking for guidance from the committee. I think you got it.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I will just open it up for final comments if there are any, since the senator did join us, and Mr. Constance as well, before we move on to the next action item.
Well, this is Senator Begich. I would just say thank you for moving forward on this PEL, and I will look forward to seeing the report. I appreciate the comments that people have made. Apologize for my hard words to some degree, but not to the full degree that I probably should. And we will have further discussions about it, but in the meantime, let's get this project moving, please.
Yes, sir.
And I got to sign off and back onto my other call.
And, Mr. Chair, for my part, I can't apologize. I just am in shock, and I'm praying for relief for my neighbors, from this body, from the state, from everybody who will listen, because they've been waiting for a long time.
Thank you. We will proceed as rapidly as we can. If I have anything to do with it. There doesn't. Okay, so I'm sorry. Moving on. Sorry for the interruption on my notes. Didn't include one. So moving on to section 7, general information items. There are none on the agenda, so we will move on to item 8, committee comments. Does the committee have any comments to add today?
I don't have any, thank you.
This is Chris Schutte, no comment. Thank you, sir.
All right, hearing no other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
This is Craig. This is obviously not a committee comment, but I'm just going to take, if I may, one last opportunity to remind the committee this is Ms. Underwood's last meeting with us. She is retiring in just a few days, not that anyone's counting, I think 3 days. Obviously, she has served the committee and the city of Anchorage for 20 years in a 100% professional capacity as a consummate professional doing her job as a senior planner. We were fortunate that she was able to finish strong with this MTP, and I appreciate that the policy committee did approve it today and recognized her amazing amount of work, along with Aaron as well, but certainly Vivian's work on this document. So just want to make sure the committee knows and understands that, and I appreciate her efforts.
Thank you, Craig.
Mr. Chair, given that last minute report from staff, I would like to make a motion to rescind her retirement. Can I get a second, please? You'll be missed, Vivian. You'll be missed.
Thank you so much. Through the chair, it's been an honor to serve the community. These 20 years, it's been a learning process, and I just want to thank all of you. It's been wonderful.
On behalf of the committee as well, thank you, Vivian. It's been an honor as well to work with you, and I appreciate all the hard work that you have done over the years and provided. Congratulations on your retirement, and good luck on anything you pursue in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, item 9, public comments. Are there any comments from the public? Hearing none. Adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Middleton moves to adjourn.
Schutte seconds.
Are there any objections to approving this motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved and the meeting is adjourned at 2:57. Thank you all.
Oh, whew. We had an hour and 13 minutes left to restart, so